It's funny, isn't it? How some things just sort of blend into the background of our lives, until we actually stop and think about them. Like take convenience stores, for example.
Yeah.
They're everywhere, right? And chances are, no matter where you are, you can probably walk into one and find like your favorite drink, your favorite snack, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That consistency, that's the beauty of a well-executed franchise.
Yeah.
It's like a familiar friend in an unfamiliar city. And so you've got this document, franquicias.pdf,
Okay.
and it seems like you're exploring this whole world of franchises in Mexico.
Right.
Maybe even picturing yourself on the other side of the counter, calling the shots.
That's an exciting prospect. And
Yeah.
you're right, franchises are all about replicating success, creating a win-win for both the brand and the individual entrepreneur.
Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. For anyone who, hasn't spent their days dissecting business models, what exactly does it mean to buy into a franchise?
Sure. In the simplest terms, it's like a partnership. You have the franchisor, the company that has the established brand, the products, and the whole system for running the business. And then you have the franchisee, the person who wants to open and operate a business using that prepackaged formula.
So it's like you're getting a head start instead of having to like invent everything from scratch.
Exactly. And that's a big part of the appeal. Instead of spending years building brand recognition, you're tapping into an existing customer base and benefiting from, established operational procedures.
Makes sense. But even with a roadmap, there's always a chance things could, go sideways, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Franchising isn't a guaranteed path to riches. It still requires hard work, business acumen, and the ability to adapt to challenges.
For sure. But you mentioned a roadmap. And speaking of roadmaps, our source, franquicias.pdf, mentions that Mexico has its own unique history with franchising.
That's right. Franchising in Mexico took root back in the mid-20th century, mainly with, U.S. brands entering the market. But it wasn't until the early 2000s that we saw a significant shift. In 2005, Mexico implemented specific legislation to regulate franchises, offering a layer of protection for both franchisors and franchisees.
The 2005 legislation you provided is fascinating. It
Yeah.
seems like Mexico really wants to protect franchisees.
Absolutely.
What specific aspects of this legislation should I be paying close attention to?
Well, one key aspect is the requirement for franchisors to provide a detailed franchise disclosure document. It's often called an FDD.
Okay.
And this outlines everything from the franchise fee and ongoing royalties to the training and support offered. This transparency is crucial for you as a potential franchisee because it allows you to make an informed decision, understanding the full scope of the agreement.
So it's like a prenup for your business,
Exactly.
making sure everyone's on the same page from the get-go.
That's it. It protects both parties and helps establish a solid foundation for a successful partnership.
So having that, that legal framework in place, that's essential. But as you kind of delve deeper into this whole world of franchising, it's all about like carefully weighing those pros and cons, right?
Absolutely. For someone like you, potentially entering the Mexican franchise market, the source really highlights the allure of that proven system. When you're stepping into a brand that already resonates with consumers,
Yeah.
you have that roadmap for operations.
So you're hitting the ground running instead of starting from square one.
Precisely. But it's also crucial to acknowledge the trade-offs, right? While you benefit from the brand's, established presence, you also have, I guess, less freedom, right? Compared to running a totally independent business. You're operating within the franchisor's guidelines, which, can feel restrictive to some entrepreneurs.
So it's about finding that sweet spot, right, between proven systems and that flexibility to adapt to like the local market.
Yeah.
The source mentions that successful multi-franchisees often look for brands with strong operational support, but also enough leeway to cater to like regional preferences. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a really keen observation. The sources focus on this multi-franchisee, especially in Mexico. It is intriguing. These are individuals or groups who own and operate multiple franchise units, sometimes even from the same brand, right? And so this suggests a strong belief in that franchise model's potential for really scalable success.
It makes sense, right? Like if you find a formula that works, why not replicate it? But isn't that a lot to manage, like multiple businesses at once?
It certainly requires a specific skill set. But, the source indicates that these multi-franchisees in Mexico, they often leverage their initial success to actually secure more favorable terms on subsequent franchises. So, potentially maximizing their returns.
Wow, so it's almost like you level up.
Kind of, yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
But regardless of whether you're considering like a single unit, you want to go all in, multi-franchise ownership, Franquicias.pdf emphasizes this, the critical importance of a well-structured business plan.
Yeah,
So even with like a pre-existing business model, you can't just wing it.
not at all. And the source is very clear on this point. You need realistic financial projections tailored to that specific market you're entering, understanding, local demand, competition, even cultural nuances. These are essential for success.
So it's like the difference between following a recipe and adapting it to like your taste and available ingredients, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Speaking of adapting, let's dive into the current state of franchising in Mexico. Our source paints a really interesting picture of the landscape. What stood out to you? Our source, it provides this statistical snapshot of the Mexican franchise market. And one trend really jumps out. Service-based franchises, they're marrying.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, when we connect this to the bigger picture, like Mexico's economic landscape in general, you know, we've seen a real shift in recent decades towards service industries playing just a much more dominant role, right? And that trend, I mean, it's reflected in the franchise world as well.
So it's like franchising is mirroring the broader economic trends in Mexico.
Exactly. And this ties into another point from Franquicias.pdf, compared to, say, more mature markets, right? Like the US or Europe, the Mexican franchise market. Still relatively young. There's a lot of room for growth.
So there's a lot of room for like savvy entrepreneurs to kind of make their mark.
Precisely.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. That said, while the document we're examining, it focuses primarily on these traditional like brick and mortar franchises, there's a whole other world kind of emerging, right? These online and digitally driven franchise models.
That's right. And our source, it mentioned how like these home-based franchises, they're gaining traction in the U.S. Could we see that trend, south of the border too?
It's certainly possible. While the source doesn't explicitly like delve into that, it repeatedly stresses the importance of innovation, right? And adaptation in the franchise landscape. Who knows? Maybe you'll be the one to pioneer that trend in Mexico.
Yeah. That's the beauty of this, right? Like exploring the possibilities, finding that right fit.
Absolutely.
Speaking of finding the right fit, our source highlights a couple of inspiring Mexican franchise success stories.
Yeah.
Coco Express caught my eye. Fresh coconut water, mobile kiosks. It feels very now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Coco Express is such a fantastic example of a franchise that's really tapped into like a specific market need with a very like simple, scalable concept. And what's particularly relevant, right, for someone like you, the source details their low investment costs, their really flexible model, using these mobile kiosks, and then they have this very, very attractive no royalties on profit structure.
Wow, that's a pretty sweet deal for a franchisee.
Right.
Now, for contrast, let's look at Loon Blue, a fashion accessories franchise featured in the source.
Okay.
It's a different vibe, right? A bit more upscale.
Definitely, yeah. And Loon Blue's success, as outlined in the document, it really emphasizes the power of, a diverse product line, a really strong brand identity, and then really robust support for its franchisees, right? And I think this reinforces that success in franchising, it isn't solely about the product itself, right? But the entire ecosystem built around it.
Yeah, support is key for sure. So for someone who's, ready to dive into this world of franchising in Mexico, what would you say, like, what are the key takeaways from our deep dive today?
I think it boils down to this, really. Informed decision-making, that's paramount, right? Franquicias.pdf. This document provides an invaluable checklist, really, when evaluating these franchise opportunities. Don't be afraid to ask tough questions.
Yeah.
About training, about marketing support, about franchise satisfaction, about the legal framework. All of that matters.
It's about aligning your entrepreneurial vision with a franchise model that complements like your strengths and goals, right?
Absolutely.
Knowledge is power in this world, and we've given you, a solid foundation to build upon.
Absolutely. Now it's about, taking that knowledge, diving deeper into the source material, right?
Yeah.
Really, really exploring those specific franchise opportunities and picturing yourself, right, as part of this vibrant and evolving world of Mexican franchising.
It's exciting stuff. Well, that about wraps it up for our deep dive today, listeners. Until next time.